be able to speak to you guys today. Thank you so much for the invitation, Patrick. I really looking forward to this, and I would like this to be a very interactive session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm going to be speaking about my story and things I've learned along the way. So looking forward to it. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, just click. Yep, there we go. So as Patrick mentioned, I was born and raised in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. Some of you may be familiar, but it's in West Africa, the most populous country in Africa, and was born in the mid '80s, and grew up there in very interesting times in the '90s. There was a lot going on in the country then, from military dictatorships to a lot of political and economic instability. And so that's really where I sort of the environment I grew up in a nutshell. Just lots of very consequential things happening on the political and economic fronts. Domestically, there were issues with things that we would take for granted in the U.S., like having stable power supply and electricity, even basic amenities like water. Um, they were not very reliable. So I remember growing up having to study using candles and lanterns, and just very interesting interesting experiences with respect to getting things done, getting by in those days in the '90s. But all in all, I would say I was very fortunate to be born into a really great family, very supportive family. I had my father and mother. They're both in the healthcare field. My dad is a doctor, and my mom uh, is a nurse by background. They had a small clinic that they ran, and so I was really exposed to healthcare medicine from a very early age. And I wanted to become a doctor primarily because my father. I looked up to him, and still look up to him. And he wasn't. It was a physician. So, just being able to run a business in that kind of environment is very tough. And so I saw firsthand just really core skills like having the right mindset, work ethic, resilience, and just being able to find a way when things are tough, being tough. So those were the some of the foundational skills that were imparted to me from a very early age. Luckily, I was able to do well in school, and took the SATs and came out here to the United States for college. But really, the lesson is universal. But I said if you can make it in Nigeria, you can make it anywhere, because it's such a it can be such an adversarial place to grow up and try to do something. So if you can really do something there, you can make it pretty much anywhere else in the world. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
So yeah, like I mentioned, I came to the United States for college. I started off pretty early. I started college when I was 16. I started at Temple University, which is a college in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is another tough city. North Philly was where Temple was located, and there was very much a lot of things going on back then from a crime perspective. I remember my dorm had uh, bulletproof glass because it was just a very interesting neighborhood that Temple was located. And so, being a 16-year-old and starting college, my parents in Nigeria and me being here on my own was a very interesting experience. So I went from a very structured environment to very unstructured environment where, I had to figure out a lot of things myself, even the way people speak, and just getting used to understanding how people speak. Temple is in Philly, and so there's snow there, so getting used to the winter and the cold. And on top of just trying to learn and do well in school. So had a lot of variability that had to figure out a way to learn how to stay focused despite a lot of distractions. And Temple, I was staying in the dorm, so I had some very interesting roommates that were into some not so savory things, such as such as drugs. Some of them were selling drugs, and it was a very interesting time because I could have easily, there was an opportunity for me to veer into not so positive things, but luckily I was able to not be involved in that, and primarily because a lot of the foundational work that my parents and just being raised in Nigeria really imparted on me. So learned to stay focused despite all those distractions. So I decided I wanted to transfer to Johns Hopkins, because it was a much tougher school for pre-med and being a doctor, and I wanted to challenge myself. So I transferred to Hopkins for my sophomore year, and Baltimore, another tough city. So you guys are seeing a theme here. uh, so going from these very tough environments. I don't know if any of you have watched this show, The Wire, but it's a very, very good show. I was in Baltimore around the time that show was shot, so a lot of the things you see there were some of the ways that some of the things that we experienced in Baltimore. But yeah, Hopkins was Baltimore was tough, but Hopkins was even tougher as a school, because you had the best of the best going there, and you really had to work hard to even get a C there. Of course, it's known to be a very strong school for biomedical research, medicine, engineering, and so I focused on molecular and cellular biology, and was able to do well enough to get into Stanford for med school. I actually got into the medical school at Johns Hopkins as well, but I decided I wanted to go to Stanford because it was a new challenge, new place, and it was really a fantastic opportunity to study medicine at Stanford. I would say the biggest lessons I learned were really to not be intimidated. I think that the this is, and I'm going to speak about this a little bit more, but in life, I found that you only succeed to the extent that you can see challenges and really not be intimidated by it. And so it's really something that has guided me. No matter how high the odds are, you really have to just go for it and not be intimidated. So the other thing is that learn to follow the beat of your own drum. There's a lot of things happening externally, so you have to really learn how to listen to yourself, and this is something you can do when you're faced with, if you have some kind of adversity. There's typically some kind of voice or some kind of inner compass that guides you as to what to do, the right decisions to make. So you have to learn how to listen to that voice. That's certainly helped me out. And then number three, humility. I think that, because these environments are very competitive, you learn very quickly to be humble and learn that you have to do the work and be humble to succeed. So, it's not something that you can just coast. You just have to work and be humble. So those are some of the things I learned at Hopkins, and I think helped me out. Go to the next slide. Next slide, please, Pat. There we go.
It's on slide 4. You
Uh,
see it?
Yep, I see Stanford now. So yeah,
Okay.
um, like Pat mentioned, I was fortunate enough to go to Stanford. I was there from 2007 to 2013, and I originally went there to study medicine, but Stanford is kind of a very special place. It is a very special place because the way in which the philosophy is that you should have an interdisciplinary education. So even though I was in the medical program, I was able to take classes in law and engineering and business, obviously. And so I really spent a lot of time just learning as much as I could, expanding my perspectives on life and really taking advantage of really everything that that school had to offer. And so um, I decided towards the end of my third year that I didn't want to practice medicine uh, because I loved seeing patients, but in terms of a career for me, I thought that I wanted to do something more sort of more impactful to a lot of people. So I wanted to have a more macro level impact in society. I really couldn't see myself doing what my attendings were doing on a day to day basis. So and I'd always been I always knew that I wanted to do healthcare plus business because again my parents were in the healthcare business. I was very much influenced by them, and so I decided to get an MBA. I got a lot of flack when I made this decision not to practice medicine. People were saying, "Wow, you're crazy! Like, wow, why would you waste this opportunity? You're gonna regret this. Why don't you just do a residency?" And so I heard a lot of things, but I focused on what I wanted to do, what was the right decision for me, and I just went full on to the business world. After this, I think the things that you learn here is you just have to get out of your comfort zone. Got out of my comfort zone, stayed humble, stayed hungry, and learned as much as I could. In the business school, for instance, a lot of my classmates, met a lot of very smart people, very accomplished folks. I didn't know anything about business, so I had to learn things from scratch. I mean, a doctor going in to do business is kind of going to business school at that time was not very common. So a lot of things that I had to learn. And but those core values that I mentioned earlier on, just staying humble and not being intimidated. I'm going to speak about this intimidation thing again in the next slide, but you know this guy calls it the theory of intimidation, and so I'm gonna go over that in the next slide. So let's go to the next slide. This guy Robert Ringer, he has a good book. I highly recommend it. uh but this this is really informs the way I think about my life and my career, and it's really been helpful to me. And is this theory of intimidation? It says the results a person achieves are inversely proportional to the degree to which he or she is intimidated. So what that means is that the less intimidated you are whenever you have some kind of challenge or you have some kind of goal, or you're in a position where you're with a lot of accomplished people, at that time you typically have voices in your head saying, hey, I can't do this, or I'm not qualified enough. uh I don't know this, I don't have these connections, I don't have these networks. And so people always just talk themselves internally out of taking the chance, going after that opportunity, even thinking big enough, because we have this self-talk, this thing that intimidates, this intimidation because of what society says you can and cannot do. So the moment you can really recognize that self-talk and that is intimidating you, most of it is internal. but sometimes externally too. The moment you can recognize that and then push back against it or just ignore it, the better your outcomes are going to be. So it says the results a person achieves are inversely proportional to the degree to which he or she is intimidated. And this next quote I really, really love, and I shared it with a lot of my friends. And it says, no one has an obligation, moral, legal, or otherwise, to work his way up through the ranks. Each human being possesses an inalienable right to make a unilateral decision to redirect his or her career and begin operating on a higher level at any time he believes he's prepared to do so. Again, society tells us that you have to do X, Y, Z to get to a certain place, or you have to climb some hypothetical ladder, or you have to do things a certain way. And if you don't do that, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to be anything. And, I think those things are all just intimidation, right? So, like, no one has any obligation to do that. You can make your decision and say, look, I want to do things. I want to do things my way. I'm prepared to do the work, but I want to chart my own path. I want to do things my way. And, this has really informed my career. For instance, I said, look, I wanted to come to the United States from Nigeria. I wanted to go to the best schools. I wanted to not practice medicine. I wanted to just do my own thing. I wanted to start my own business. And, you just find a way to do that. Obviously, you have to work hard. You have to figure out and really do the work and be humble. But this whole idea of like, hey, you have to do X, Y, Z to get to point ABC is not something that I have found personally to always be the case. So you have a right to always do and chart your own path and not be intimidated. Let's go to the next slide.
All right.
So yeah, I think this is the last slide, or second to the last slide. But as Pat mentioned, I after school, I spent 6 years at Stanford. It was really hard to leave, but I did the I did the MD and I did the MBA. MD was 4 years, MBA 2 years. But after school, I went to NerdWallet, which is a fintech startup here in San Francisco. It was just a great opportunity. I was one of the early employees, and I was employee number 30 or 40 something. And when I left 3 years later, we were about 400. So really big, just really great opportunity to be in a fast growing startup and learning as much as I can. I would say the biggest things is that for me, were building my network, building core skills and competencies. In my case, I was doing strategy and business development. So really focusing on building those skills, communication, just being tenacious and just thinking strategically about issues and problems and solutions. I'll say the network thing is very important. It's a core skill in general. One thing I encourage you all to do, build your network, meet people, don't be shy. Always figure out a way that you can be of value. So figure out what you can do for people. Not what they can do for you. Just what can I do to be of a value add to folks. And so I built my network at NerdWallet. And funny enough, some of the folks I built my network with there ended up being investors in my company, Gentem Health. In fact, the co-founder of NerdWallet is one of my first investors at Gentem. And, Gentem, our mission is to simplify reimbursements and payments for healthcare providers, especially independent doctors and providers. And we built a pretty strong company. We're still early stage. We started the company in 2019, just myself and my co-founder. Today we have about 20 employees. We've raised almost $15 million in equity. And more importantly, we're working on a big problem in healthcare, just really helping doctors be doctors, focus on what is most important, which is the patient side, and then having us help them with the administrative insurance claims processing and things like that. So yeah, no, it's been a very fun ride. And we continue to make progress. So let's go to the next slide. So yeah, I guess this is my final slide. Just three pieces of advice for you guys. I think in reflection, I've been in the States since 2003, so 18 years now. I'll say that these three things help me out. Have a long-term point of view. So think about things in terms of 10-year chunks. For instance, say, hey, look, where do I want to be when I'm in my late 20s or sort of getting to my 30s, and sort of work your way backwards to that. And this helps because it helps you sort of prioritize the kind of decisions you make. And more importantly, I think a question to ask yourself is not so much what do I need to do to get here, but almost like what kind of person do I need to be to accomplish my goals. And the doing part is not very hard. It's like, well, you have to be the kind of person that would do that kind of stuff, that would do the work, that would study, that would pay attention, that would be diligent, that would be tenacious. So that question is really core. Second thing is like, what are things I need to avoid? Not this don't this one doesn't really get a lot of attention because society is all about do. But I would say a big part, more important, is like, what are the things I actually need to not do or need things to avoid, So for instance, at this young age, is just a few things. Don't get caught up in, for me, I'll speak for myself, just not getting caught up in drugs or anything that can lead to some addictions, because that can just derail everything, in terms of just being aware of yourself. You really don't want to be addicted to anything, so you want to avoid addiction, because it will derail your life. Typically, you want to avoid just those bad things with respect to getting caught up with some wrong people. And once you do that, this question is more personal. You have to just ask yourself, what are the things I need to avoid? Once you do that, you find out that half the battle is won. And then number three is, like I said, don't be intimidated. It's very easy to be intimidated in this day and age. Everybody has something to say. Everybody thinks they know what's best for you, but you have to really try to figure out what is best for you. You have to be willing to work hard, and you just have to just have that mantra in your mind that, look, I'm going to face these challenges. I'm gonna overcome it. So those are the things that have helped me out in my career. I'm 34, so and I'm not, I'm still in my mid 30s, but I found that these things have been very helpful to me. So yeah, I wish you guys all the best, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ositelu. We have time for questions. So if you have any questions, actually, we're going to change it up a little bit from last semester. Use the hand raise feature on Teams, and then I'll just call on you, and then you can ask the question. If there are any. Okay.
I have one.
I think we got one, Mr. Arnold. Ryan Hussein.
Yeah. I just had a quick question. So, I think you recommend, say, after you finish college, a few years after you finish college, do you think it's a better idea to like have like a little side gig of like working on something like being an entrepreneur, or do you think it's better to first learn under someone or having sort of like doing a job before doing that?
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing. My recommendation will be to just do it, you know. Um, and the best way that I've found to learn is by doing things. And so uh I would, if I were in your shoes, if I had an opportunity to start a business, I would just start it. And you learn things on the job, so to speak. But again, the core thing is, building your network. You have to have mentors to just run things by them. But you're gonna learn a lot by being an entrepreneur. So yeah, why not?
All right, thank you.
Hmm.
Thanks for the question, Ryan. Eric Gonzalez.
Hi, yeah. So, I had a question. So, what was something that kind of motivated you throughout school, throughout your education?
Yeah. What can you be more specific? What do you mean by motivated? It just yeah.
Yes. So, like you said earlier, that you were really interested in medicine,
Mhm.
aspect, like in that kind of field, and then you switched up to business,
Mhm.
something like that. What kind of motivated you to switch from medicine to business? I think you kind of clarified a little bit, but I was just
Yeah.
interested in that.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to have a much broader impact in my community and my society, and business, especially using technology, was a very powerful lever, is a very powerful lever to effect change in the world. And so, you know, that's actually one of the reasons that I went to Stanford instead of staying at Johns Hopkins, because Stanford and Silicon Valley, known for being innovative, technology, changing the world. This was when Google and Facebook were really taking off. And so just a lot of things happening there in the mid 2000s. So I think that I just want to be a part of that. You find that in every era there's really like a wave of something happening, and you can strategically ride that wave and use it to project your career. So I wanted to really move with the technology and be a part of that very powerful force. And so that's what I did.
Hey,
Thank you.
Fisayo, this is Pat here. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you much about, the transition from being an employee for much of your career to now being a CEO. Talk
Right.
about that transition and what a leadership position means to you, and how you've embraced that challenge.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've always viewed myself, and this is something that I recommend. You should always view yourself as a CEO, because at the end of the day, you are your own CEO. So even though you're employed by somebody else, you still have to approach your job, no matter how small it is, as, you know, this is what I own. I own it. I have ownership of this task, this activity, these goals, these outcomes. And so the mindset should always be that, look, I'm my own CEO and I take ownership. And so that's really what uh, I have. That's pretty much what happened to me. Um, Again, it wasn't that big of a transition, to be honest with you, Pat, because again, you just always have to view yourself as a CEO. And what that means is that you have to take extreme ownership. The buck always stops with you. Anything you're involved with, see things through, be accountable to yourself. And because of that, people will be accountable to you. So I would say that it's a very, obviously there's a lot of things I'm learning. I'm a first time CEO. I've been doing this for you know just under 2 years, but just being humble and just learning as much as you can. You make mistakes, but that's the nature of the game, right? To just play and see what happens.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think also Ryan Milligan had a question. I don't know if he has any more, but I'm just gonna ask the question anyway. Oh, Ryan, go for it. You can ask the question.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my first question throughout your presentation, but I developed a new one. You talked about how you have over 20 employees. So for you personally, what's something that you look for when hiring these employees?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think the first thing is really passion and someone that really wants to solve a big problem. Because if you think about what we're trying to do, it's a really massive problem in healthcare. There's a lot of administrative issues, and so just having that DNA to want to make an impact, because startups are they can be chaotic, and to be honest with you, it's not always pretty because everyone's doing a lot of things. But so the first thing is just that passion to want to work and get stuff done. And of course, you just have to be competent. You have to be a master of your craft, and you have to have ownership. So, because again, working at a big company like Facebook or Google is different from working at a startup, right? So yeah, those are the things I look for: the vision, the passion, as well as the competence to get the job done.
Awesome. If any of you have any more questions, now would be the time. Yeah, Daniel, go for it.
So you mentioned throughout your presentation quite a bit about the importance of building strong connections. So I was wondering, how would you suggest keeping up those connections over a long period of time? Because I feel like it's really easy to start to lose those connections over time. So
yeah, are you guys on LinkedIn? I've heard of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we teach them how to build their profile, so they're pretty aware of it. They're good.
To get on LinkedIn, and if you're not on there, you guys should add me on LinkedIn. I would accept any invites there. But LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, and has made things a lot easier. So really, the best way to keep connections or foster connections is to really be a value add to your network. So that means providing information, content that is value add to that network, engaging people whenever they request for help, and just trying to be helpful to them. I would say that's really the best way to keep your connections. And to be honest with you, most people want to help, right? Most people want to really help you. And so the connections don't have to be very, very strong. In fact, weaker connections actually sometimes are higher yield than the stronger ones. But the core thing is for you to be engaged with your community. LinkedIn is a very, very easy platform to use. Share information, be of value add to them, and you'd be surprised how helpful folks are to you.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Daniel. I think if we don't have any more questions, I think that's perfect timing. Mr. Arnold, do you have any final things to say?
First and foremost, a huge thank you to Fisayo for taking the time to present today. One thing, guys, it's a really chaotic situation when you run a startup company, as Fisayo has talked about. And with that comes not a ton of time to do things like this. So this was huge. And he carved out 45 great minutes for us. So make sure you guys figure out a way to thank him. Most importantly, take him up on the opportunity to connect with him via LinkedIn, and make make notice of this. This was a great presentation, and Fisayo, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pat. Definitely, pleasure is all mine, and I'm very excited to help in any way. And you guys have a bright future ahead of you. You're in a very great country, great city, and a lot of folks don't have this opportunity. So just take advantage of it. I'm happy to be of help any way I can, and pleasure is all mine.
Awesome. All right, guys, give them a go Bells.
Go Bells.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
Bells.
Go Bells. Thank you.
Go Bells.
Thank you.
Go Bells.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.